Welcome to the Afterlife Series. Today we are speaking with Krista. Welcome, Krista. She is a former competitive skater turned business owner. In 2009, she founded the collegiate skating team at Syracuse University.
She's trained all over the United States, excuse me, including the University of Delaware, where she completed her degree in psychology. However, she didn't leave college before being crowned the collegiate national champions with UD in 2011.
Ooh. Krista immediately began her professional show skating career after college with Disney on Ice. From there, she moved on to become a soloist with Royal Caribbean Cruise Ships.
Now you probably know her as the founder of Floquiya, an e-commerce brand that specializes in innovative skating socks. Welcome, Krista. Thank you for being here today.
Krista.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So we want to kind of start by knowing a little bit more about how you identify with yourself, and maybe you can start with, what was your afterlife moment? Can you pinpoint a moment where your paradigm kind of shifted from competition to the rest of your life?
Yeah, so I think this is something that is really great kind of for the time that we're living right now. I think a lot of people might actually be in that very moment of your paradigm shift. And so I'm going to do my best to, tell my personal experiences with this, and hopefully in some way this will help other skaters who are kind of experiencing this right now. But for me personally, I don't say it was one specific moment. And, that was my personal experience. It wasn't like I was a performer on Monday and on Tuesday I was a marketing coordinator, or like this whole new position, or a nurse or something like that. So for me personally, it was very gradual and it was very progressive. And it wasn't something that happened overnight, because I kind of had to detangle myself from the sport. And that took a really long time for me. And I kind of had to figure out my place outside of, I think Vic and I talked about this before, like blades on our feet. Like, what does that look like without blades to the ice, or without skating? Mm-hmm. So as far as shifting from competition to the rest of my life, I actually had to go through this twice. And I went through this right after I finished competitive skating and went into show skating. And then I went through it a second time, lucky me, when I retired from pro skating and then moving on to the rest of my life from that. So I'm pretty familiar with those feelings and kind of the process of it, just because I had to go through it twice.
You're like Madonna, always reinventing yourself.
It's like I thought it was over the first time, and then I was like, crap, I have to do this again. Once I was like, okay, I'm not, I'm going to move on from performing and I'm going to move on to something else. And I'm like, geez, I thought I already did this before. This feels so familiar. What I'm living again right now, I thought it was a one-time thing that I had to get through. And it's actually really hard. And that's why I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because I always wanted to start the dialogue about this, because when I was going through it, I really had nobody to talk to about it, because nobody really talks about it. And so I'm glad that we're kind of able to come together and start the conversation, because I think it could help a lot of people that find themselves in that transition of their life. Like, okay, I did this my whole life. I figure skated my whole life. Now what do I do? How do I find the next thing? How do I find the next step? And so I think something important about it is talking about it with people, which I did not do. I didn't do, because maybe I felt embarrassed about it, or I didn't have the confidence to bring it up with people. But now that I've kind of lived through it, not once, but twice, I feel a lot more comfortable to kind of bring it up in conversation with you guys. And it's definitely not something easy to do.
No. And you've done this now twice, as you just mentioned. The second time was building your brand, Floquiya. So what is it about skating merchandise that wasn't cutting it for you?
Yeah, so I mean, the first kind of like thought pattern I had behind like starting an e-commerce brand, a lot of it was just kind of like finding, this was, you know, what I did right after pro skating. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna try everything. I don't know what I like. I don't know myself well enough yet because I was just all consumed by my sport for so long. And I was like, oh, this is my one thing that I love. But now when that one thing, you kind of like close the book and you want to start writing a new chapter, I wanted to stay connected towards something I knew a lot about. And so I felt for so long that the figure skating market was completely overlooked because it's such a small niche. And I think that there were no well-positioned brands that were speaking directly to figure skaters. And it's why you'll see a lot of figure skaters wearing and buying and being consumers of other brands that are meant for yogis or that are meant for CrossFitters, or, you know, we all wear like Lululemon, or, you know, nothing that's directly marketed towards figure skaters. And I know the thinking for big businesses why they don't do that, and that's because it's such a small niche. They can't make a lot of money doing it. There's just figure skating such a small sport. And I knew that like always broke my heart because this is like the sport I loved, and a lot of people just didn't care enough about it. So that was like the driving force behind like wanting to create merchandise and physical products in the figure skating market, kind of just to give back to a sport that gave so much to me.
Amazing. Amazing. And as far as our current state with coronavirus, how do you think that this is impacting business in an e-commerce kind of world?
So it's dramatically impacting all businesses, e-commerce, brick and mortar, everybody. I mean, I even feel for competitors and people training right now because the ice is our medium and you can't get to an ice rink. You can't. And so as far as from a business standpoint, of course, it's dramatically impacting everybody. But I mean, you can either sit and wallow about it, or, you know, we could do what a lot of us are doing, is just reinventing the wheel. I mean, how else can we provide value during this time when we're all stuck at home? And, you know, if that means making shifts in your business, if that means redefining processes or finding new channels, starting new ways, starting new things, then you just go for it. You just do it. There's not much else to be said on that, especially in a time where it's just full of uncertainty and nobody really knows which way this thing is going to go anyways.
And that can be said about like the professional skating world too. Like, no shows, what's everyone doing? How are those people making a living? How are they surviving? Like, no cruise ships, what's happening? Like, do you have any thoughts to share on that like aspect, having lived that life for a portion of your life?
Oh my gosh, it's like so heartbreaking. I think that like I distance myself even from owning a business right now because I feel even more pain for the people going through that right now. As far as if you're making your money performing, if that's your livelihood, if that's your passion. And when this was all starting to happen and shows were just closing down, my heart was literally breaking. I'm like, what is the world without professional ice shows? It's nothing. Like, we need professional ice shows. They're the coolest type of entertainment you could ever see. And so I kind of went through some phases and thinking like, oh my gosh, which way is this going to go? And obviously a lot of people have turned to, you know, digital mediums, the screen. And I think that's great. And I think that's filling a void, but temporarily, because now that I've reflected on it a lot more, there's just nothing that can compare to human connection. There's nothing that can compare to like hearing blades cracking on the ice.
Immersion.
He's like seeing ice fly, like watching a live ice show.
Yeah.
yes, we can do some of it and translate it onto the screen, but nothing's ever going to replace that feeling, everything that comes with live entertainment. So, my thoughts and my hope are that once we kind of get back to some sort of normalcy, I think that people are going to be craving more than ever live entertainment.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I'm hoping for. And I think that's what a lot of people are hoping for. And it makes sense to me that everyone is just going to be wanting to see whatever live entertainment that is out there. And so I think right now the digital medium, performing on the screen, doing all of that is a great Band-Aid. It's a great way to fill the void right now.
Yeah.
I don't think I think it'll continue on even after coronavirus too, because it's cool to have that connection. We wouldn't be sitting down and having this conversation right now if it wasn't for coronavirus. So it's kind of, you know what I mean? So it's kind of it's great right now. It's filling the void. But I think the future of performance and, professional ice shows, I think it's going to come back with a vengeance.
Yeah. It's hard too, because I feel like for so many people, we kind of briefly touched on this last week with Elvis and Gladys, so many people last year did not get the end of season that they had planned for or hoped for. So there's going to be, like you had started with, and you said so well, there's going to be so many people in this afterlife moment and going through this transition. And I feel like without adequate conversation and preparation, you have two choices. You get to be a coach or go skate on Disney on Ice. That, I didn't know about anything. When I finished skating, I was so lucky that an amazing production kind of fell into my lap. Timing was everything, but for so many skaters, I had no idea about the show skating world. And when you're in so deep. And I worry now about the number of skaters who don't feel like they can pick their season back up. So they're going to think okay, well, maybe I'll go the pro skating route and save money for college, or just get a kickstart to my coaching career and work on that while I'm skating still, because I still love skating. But the reality is going to be that a major production, I've heard rumors, had 9 productions around the world and is going to come back in the fall with 2. So, that's maybe 50, 60 skaters who get to keep their job out of an entire company. So I think it's so hard now to have this vast knowledge about, transitioning into pro skating, but keeping it real about what your options really look like and not getting discouraged in this process. And just wondering if you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so to go off what you said, a lot of people are going to see kind of an unwelcome end to their career, or, no longer performing, not by choice. But I think that it's more about living in the present moment. What can I do right now? And I think that a lot of people who maybe find themselves in that situation, the best thing you could do right now, and I'm speaking from personal experience, is use this idle time that you can't necessarily be skating or training or filming your audition reel or, emailing producers, is taste a little bit of everything else. And I think that was totally shunned upon during competition, having an option B, oh, you're going to go to university and have an option B. Oh, you're not fully dedicated to the sport. You must not be committed, or you don't think it's going to work out for you. The thing is, life after figure skating is inevitable. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay. And, I think there's, it's this is a time where you could maybe take that course you've always been wanting to take, or try that one little thing. And I think trying little things, it builds self-awareness. You learn about yourself. And I think that's a huge key to success, is knowing what you like. And I think when you're training and you're in competition, you don't really get that opportunity, and it's shunned upon if you want to try anything else. But right now, I think it's the best thing you could do. And that's not to say that once all this is over, you'll still be sending your audition reels in, and you still might get a job as whatever it may be, a show skater or a coach. But you can always have that little thing in your back pocket, like, oh, well, I know this really turned me on, or I really like this. And, I could see it through a little bit, like on the weekends or my time off. And I think there's nothing wrong with kind of exploring that side of yourself. And that's really a useful tool that I can tell you from experience can kind of help you with an inevitable transition that is going to come your way, whether you like it or not.
I think you touched on a really great point, and this seems to be a common topic that we were touching on. We tend to link our identity with figure skating, and now it's a great time to kind of be us, use our skill set, and put it somewhere else instead of putting it with skating. And yeah, I think that's been a common trend that we're noticing with people going through their afterlife. To change topic a little bit, we have a couple fan questions lined up. So the first fan question, do you have a goal in life, a big picture end game goal? I know that's a big statement, but
it is, but it isn't, because if you asked me a couple years ago, that would have been like a big statement. But it's really simple, actually. I mean, for me, my goal in life, you asked me a couple years ago, I would have given you some like dissertation with like numbers and figures and dates, because one, that's my personality. I'm like huge with goal setting, short term and long term, and I journal and I use everything pen to paper. But when you kind of like go through something that we're going through now and you step back and you look at everything, for me, it's as simple as my goal in life is to wake up every single morning and just feel energized by what I'm doing. That's it. It's as simple as that. I want to wake up, and whatever I'm doing every single day or that particular day, I want to feel excited by it. I want to feel energized. And I think that is just something so important, especially when you're trying to find your identity outside of skating and you don't know where to start or you don't know what to do. It's as simple as asking yourself, like, does this light me up? Does this energize me? And if it does, that particular thing, take one tiny step towards it and just keep making tiny steps towards that. And if every step you take, you feel energized, you feel excited, feel happy, and you're on to something good. So for me, the goal in life is as simple as waking up every morning and one, just thanking God for everything, and then just being like, am I energized by what I'm doing? That's all I want.
Being present. Do you remember anything that you specifically tried? Because you talked a lot about kind of trying new things, and like to get to this kind of end game picture that you've arrived at that I think is so wise. Do you remember trying anything that you were like, okay, this is not going to be the rest of my life, but this is so fun right now, and it's like giving me a lot of, like, just giving me meaning?
Yes. I mean, I think that I call it your what. So your what could be like whatever job you're doing or whatever project you're working on in the moment. Your what is constantly going to change throughout your life. So the medium in which you express yourself, it's constantly going to be changing throughout your life. But the reason why you do it, the mission or why you're doing it, needs to remain the same. So I think that focusing on finding out the mission or the why you do stuff, why you do the Edge Collective, or why I sell products using the brand name Floquiya, why you want to do that is way more important than the what. And I think we get fixated on trying all these things and what it's going to be like and what the job position is going to be or what industry I'm going to go work in. That is constantly going to change throughout your life. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're just staying true to your mission. I mean, right after I'm about 2.5 years out of pro skating, I've tried like tens and like so many things because I didn't really allow myself that time while I was training and skating and performing to taste, to try, to do all these like little different things in my free time. One, because I didn't have a ton of free time. And so once I phased out of skating, I just allowed myself that chance, that opportunity to try a bunch of things. And maybe what I'm doing now is what I'm doing now, but it's not to say that in a couple of years, my what may change. You might be doing something completely different and you're like, what? She's doing this now? But as long as I'm staying true and authentic to like my why and my mission and why I'm doing it, it's going to translate through. And so, yes, there's been so many things that I've tried and felt good in the moment and then maybe kind of died off really quickly. But I always extract like the golden nugget or like the lesson from it or the skill that I learned from it, and I just bring it to the next thing.
To bring it back to some more fan questions, what advice would you give some young people from an entrepreneurial standpoint and from a pro skater standpoint?
That I think from an entrepreneurial standpoint, or someone who's created something out of just like an idea in my head, it's kind of just that same idea of investing time and getting to know yourself, what makes you tick, trying things outside of skating. And, for young skaters right now who may be stuck at home and, it's okay to feel sad some days that you can't skate or see your skating friends or whatever, or your competition season is over. It's totally fine to kind of just run through those emotions and sit with them and then let them pass. But you could also, use this time right now to just try some new things so you can, build some self-awareness, because it's going to come to be a great tool once you phase out of skating and you move on to something else, really knowing yourself and what you like. And then from kind of like a professional skater standpoint, for young skaters, and, this is me talking as if, show skating is going to pick up where it left off aside from coronavirus. But, you don't need to be the best skater. And I say that from personal experience. When I was skating, I always felt like there was somebody better than me. Like, why would they pick me? I'm not the best skater. That person's way better. They can do a triple left, triple toe, and they have beautiful extension and can do these amazing spirals. Why would I get picked? Why could I do it? And the thing to know about that is hard work, and you can outwork anybody. And my personal experience, that's how I was able to transition so quickly from competition into professional skating. I outworked so many people. I was not the best skater. I was not. I showed up at shows and there were skaters who were 10 times better than me, but I stayed late and I practiced and I outworked everybody. So when everybody was tired, I kept going. And that is why I had success in pro skating. And so I think there's something to value about hard work over skill and ability on the ice, and it can bring you places after a competition. And it's just something that young skaters need to keep in mind when they're trying to decide their avenue post-competition.
I'm going to hit you with a quote. Hopefully I get it right. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
That's it.
Nailed it.
Oh, I was like hoping you were going to go there, and I was like, I want to see if she can bring it out. This girl's been working all night, talking about hard work.
Yeah.
That's
I still got out the quote.
That's literally my figure skating career, like in a nutshell. In a nutshell, I was never the best, but I kicked everyone's butt when it came to hard work.
Right. That's
honestly awesome. Like some of the best advice I ever got was minimize your weaknesses. Like your best strengths are going to be your lack of weaknesses, but also develop your strengths. Like there, and we spoke kind of to Elvis about this last week. Like, he's known for like these massive jumps, huge show personality. And then Gladys was like, I like lines. I like skating beautifully. I like edge work. I like running, like edge class. And I had said too, like, from our point of view as synchronized skaters, which is kind of what motivated the Edge Collective to get started, was we weren't feeling like our strengths had a place in the show world, but we felt like we had something of value to bring the show world that was not being maximized. And for years, like I would say for the first 4 years of actually up till now, like I'm still trying to jump, and like I don't, and that's personal experience, like I don't really love jumping. It's not the thing I'm best at. I think it's a handy tool to have randomly, but like I think all of us would say the same thing. Give us some like moves in the field, give us footwork, give us like group work, like you know, maximize our strengths and like believe in those strengths.
Yeah.
And stop trying to be better than the person next to you whose strengths are totally different than you.
And just
Play to your
And
strengths.
that like goes with like just the idea of, I just firmly believe nobody can do it the way you can do it. And I think if young skaters kind of put that in their minds, nobody can do this one thing the way I can do it, and believe it, because it really is the truth. Nobody can do whatever it is, a double axel or your spiral or your cool foot sequence or the way you're able to skate in a group or do a pinwheel. Nobody really can do it the way you can do it. And if you just remind yourself of that, especially if you start putting yourself out for professional shows or, you know, what Vic just said, just, you know, showcasing your strengths. And, you know, people will find so much value in it, especially if you go towards it with, you know, kind of this instilled confidence.
I just have a quick question that is unplanned, but Gladys last week had said her thing was a double axel. She was like, my double axel was fire. Do you have like one or two tricks from skating that you're like, oh God, I love that. I could whip it out on my worst day and it's going to be phenomenal?
I don't know if I could whip it out on like my worst day. It depends what show or what contract I was doing, but it was definitely double axel. It was like my jump. I felt so cool doing it. I felt good doing it. I wasn't known for height, but I was known for really quick rotation. So I'm really small. I'm 5 feet tall. And so my jumps were never huge, but I could just spin and rotate really fast. So for me, it was definitely a double axel, but I had a love-hate relationship with that jump.
Fair enough.
We all single
out. Talked a little bit about like touring. Obviously with Disney on Ice, you were touring. On Royal Caribbean, you were touring. Our last fan question that we got for you was your favorite travel destination and why?
I love that question because I think like you inadvertently come into like this passion for travel that you didn't know you had if you go on tour or if you work on ships. But it's hard to pick just one, but I know which one it's going to be, and it's definitely Italy. Because for me, Italy just has like, it checks all of the boxes. Food, amazing food, culture, music, history, fashion, just everything. It checks everything.
People are just amazing, right?
Amazing. And the language, come on. It sounds like they're singing when they talk. Like, they're just like living artists, all Italians.
That's just Alessia literally.
Well, thank you for the compliment.
Actually described her resident Italian.
Well, I'm pretty biased because my family comes from Sicily. So.
Okay, there we go.
Pizza. Truth comes out.
We're paisanos.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were just talking, we were going to bring it back to Krista. You had spoken about, you know, trying new things and, you know, just exposing yourself to a bunch of different things in the quest of finding yourself and knowing what makes you tick. But inevitably, we will try something that's just not going to be it for whatever reason. But we end up cherishing those experiences later on in life. So we call I hate to call it a failure, but that's why I put it in quotes. So what would you say is your failure that you now can look back and really cherish?
So my first thought about that and just failure in general, I definitely go by the mantra of fail fast, which that means to me, failure is just a stepping stone. It's kind of like my fast track towards achieving whatever I'm, you know, working to achieve. You never hear success stories without people talking about their failures in order to get there. So I think once you kind of reprogram the language around failure and realizing that it is a very necessary thing that you have to go through, and just getting more comfortable with it. And that took me a while. I'm still working on that, but I'm definitely way more comfortable with that than I was maybe a couple of years back. Especially in sports and in figure skating, failure can look very obvious and kind of on display for everybody. So you it's just kind of a way different feeling than failing at other things outside of sport.
Yeah.
But I think that figure skating is one of the most beautiful and amazing analogy for failure. And to keep this short, I mean, there was a particular instance for me that kind of always sits in the back of my mind, and it was my first ice show on cruise ships. So it was my first time being a soloist. I was new to everything, and we were doing a tech run. So that means you're pretty much doing the show with your spotlight, with lights, with music, but there's just no audience. So you're doing the whole show the same way you would as if an audience was there, but there's no audience. And my solo, I was assigned with that solo a very heavy tango dress to wear. And so now going beyond, the pressure behind having to hit certain tricks and elements, this new factor was thrown at me. Okay, now relearn all your tricks and elements with this massive skirt on. I'm short. The skirt was literally 75% of my body. And so when we did this tech run, it was like just producers watching and casting director. Spotlight's on you, I'm sweating, I'm so freaking nervous. And so I start my solo, I do my cute little choreography, I skate around, and mind you, I'm adjusting to 40 by 60 size ice rink on a cruise ship, so that's also fun. Skating around into my double axel, and I biff it, like hit the glass like whiplash fall, not like just a little like, oh, I felt like a Bambi fall on my butt, like I biff it, like I fall. And so they stop the music, and I go over to the casting director, and she's just like, do you want to try again? And I was like, yeah. They restarted the music, recentered the lights, did it again, biffed it, ate crap, hit the glass. I skate over, she goes, do you want to try it again? And I was like, yeah, we did this for, I can't even remember how many times. Almost 10 did I just keep going around and around. And then let me tell you, 1 or 2 weeks after that, this was an 8-month contract, I hardly ever missed an element in my solo with that gosh darn dress, just because I went through that failure, just because I went through that. And I think just bringing that analogy into life is so amazing that we have that as figure skaters. When we fail, we actually fall on our butt physically, actually fall onto the ice.
I've never thought of it that way. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
I thought about it like years after. I'm like, oh my God, like I have fallen on my butt that like more times than I can count on my hands in front of huge audiences. Mm-hmm. And the thing with bringing that into regular life or life outside of figure skating or life outside of sports, it's like, what do you do when you fall? Are you just gonna sit there? Are you just gonna like get up and run away and hide? Or are you just gonna get up and be like, okay, I'm gonna try again? And you just like dust it off and just keep going. And then the fact that something so good came out of me persevering through that, then having like a great contract where I was skating the best I ever skated, and then also built this confidence around being like, wow, I can do my tricks or jumps or whatever, like really in any costume now. Like I feel invincible, And it's just like, yeah, bringing that analogy to life, that figure skaters, we actually fall on our butts, sometimes in front of huge audiences, especially as a pro skater. You can really do anything. And I remind myself if I'm ever in a hard situation, I'm like, wait, I fell on my, I don't know if I can swear. I fell on my butt in like a lion costume in like Brazil with like tens of thousands of people cheering and watching for me. And I got up. Like, why can't I go to this job interview and kill it? Or why can't I go start a business? Why can't I go do that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So all perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, bringing that into like regular life, like you develop so many more skills through failures and figure skating specifically. weekly that are really useful beyond figure skating.
I love that. I love that. So final conversation point would be final words of advice, but all through this, you have given such incredible advice with regards to taste a little bit of everything, find the golden nuggets in failure, know what you like. You are incredibly resilient. And me personally, I just wanted to ask a quick question. Do you have a favorite motivational book or podcast that you listen to?
Oh my God, this could like go on for like hours because
Let it. I'm writing this down.
On to the next episode. Here we go.
literally we could do like a whole episode just talking about like books and podcasts and whatever. It is such like a almost hobby, self-development, self-improvement. I don't know where I got it from, but it's like an obsession. So where do I even start? First of all, if you have not read the book, now I'm into spirituality too, so it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but you need to read The Game of Life and How to Play It. You need to read this book. So read that book. It's by Florence Scovel-Shinn. It's short read. It's on like the spiritual side, but it's, you know, very general. It's not like in one direction, but that book has like helped me in so many ways. Podcasts, like I listen to How I Built This by Guy Raz, if you're into like business and entrepreneurship. Also I listen to, like you could put it in like the comments below. I could give all of my favorite, like,
share them because I think it's such a valuable tool. So.
Yeah. What about Russell Brand?
I haven't dived into him. Does he do like motivation stuff?
Especially if you like the topic of spirituality, like he brings in every Tom, Dick, and Harry you can think about, people who you wouldn't necessarily identify as spiritualist. I don't know. But his perspectives are so interesting. He has the most interesting conversation with the Iceman. It's probably still on there. I think it came out like in the last 6 months or so. Russell Brand, I can't think of the name of the podcast right now, but it's his show, and he's so interesting, and like he's so funny because he just stays kind of like in this like weird neutral space where his guests sometimes get so riled up because he like always throws like devil's advocate questions at them and things, and like and he's very, very like humanist, and you probably like that.
Gary Vee too, like he's more like business stuff, but a lot of motivation. Like I'll go for months where I only listen to him. I did that like the last 60 days, like unintentionally, like just Gary Vee every single day. I don't think he's the greatest person with interviews, but when he's just talking and in his element and doing his thing, I love Gary Vee's stuff. Other books that I can think of off like the top of my head, I love The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, obviously, and I love The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Like I'm all into like those like types of books. I think they're like spiritual and motivational at the same time, but those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. And I love that you asked that question because that's like such a passion of mine, that whole world of like self-development, motivation, spirituality, stuff like that.
We'll have to do like a book list for you. Krista's book list.
Next episode's going to be a book club. Floquiya with the Edge Collective, just talking
Floquiya,
full nerd mode, and just like have a little weekly.
You know what? Why not?
Here we go.
Right.
The next series.
We want to do right now.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, unfortunately, we have to cut this afterlife topic to an end, but I know I'm speaking on behalf of the three of you, Vic, Alessia, and Emily with the Edge Collective, and like we're very thankful that we're able to connect with you over this time and have you just share your afterlife stories and your inspiration more so than anything, just to help people not only through this time, but just through that sort of like that dynamic change of life that we're all going to go through if we haven't yet, and to know that we go through it multiple times throughout our lives, I think is a very just like great note to end on. But yeah, I want to say thank you on behalf of all of us.
So much.
Thank you. That was like amazing. And I'll even leave like my personal email address, your caption below. Like if anyone wants to continue the conversation, if you're in that weird transition period of your life right now and you're like, I don't know what to do next, I'm happy to just even have that conversation with people and just, you know, be the person I wish I had when I was going through that myself.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Really,
Alright.
too. Krista has been so kind to offer a coupon code for Floquiya for everybody who's following the Afterlife series. Krista's offered us 25% off at Floquiya. So this would be a great time to go through your wardrobe and your skating equipment and see what needs a refresher. I love the fishnets. I swear by them.
Ooh.
Never had to mend them one time. Time. And so we're gonna link that coupon code below as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much. It was so nice talking to you.
Bye, Krista. From all of us here at the Edge Collective, we're so happy you're able to join us on this video today.
As you guys know, we are new to this, so there are a lot of startup costs to consider.
Please check out the link below for GoFundMe. If you are willing and able to help, it'd be greatly appreciated.
And thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time.